of a, oh, hey, I think our customers will also be struggling with this. So, can we address this gap? And then that identifies another problem to solve within the same design. And so it becomes much less personal and much more, we're solving a problem together. So when I'm looking at, how do I partner? Like every single article that I write, every time that I talk about my relationship with designers on our team, it really is that the design organization is our partner. Like I'm a partner with them. It doesn't happen without them. As same way that I partner with engineering, like they are my engineering partners, they're my development partners. The product doesn't happen without them. So, when you position things from that perspective, where everyone is on the same team, it makes conflict a lot less personal and a lot more about solving the right problem for the right customers the right way.
It's good insight. I've seen, the role of product manager or project manager, you're having to do a lot of directing of folks, but they're not actually reporting to you. They're not accountable to you. It is a human situation where you've got to build trust with people, and that's when people are the most successful.
Right. And from the design side, it's definitely about trust and trust with our partners and establishing that relationship, because like Elaine mentioned, that kind of like how you frame things for designers kind of do this tiptoe around their PM also. It's about like, we don't want to come in and act like we're trying to solve your problem, but at the same time, our designer ego still wants to be the problem solver and be the hero. So it really is about tearing down those walls and aligning on terminology and just being open with each other so that you can have those real serious discussions when that time comes. It's just a balance that we live in. And I'm kind of in a similar situation of understanding. So I have people that directly report to me, but sometimes their product owners or product managers control their work more so than I do. So it's kind of that opposite balance of, I have these direct reports, but I don't manage their work directly, but I still kind of manage their work directly. So yeah, it really is about that relationship. And I think that especially like UX and PM, like that is almost the same type of person at the end of the day. Like you have to have that strong mindset, that ability to solve the needs of the customers, the ability to have conversations that are uncomfortable at times, the ability to make decisions, and just the ability to execute on things. So I feel like it requires a similar type of personality.
And so can I unpack a little bit of that? I get it, and I know that a lot of people listening to this show get it, that you've got to build partnerships and all those things. But can we talk a bit about what you personally do more tactfully when you're trying to build this trust in your team? Every culture is a bit different, right? Elaine and Andy, are you inviting that person who's managing that group out to lunch? What are some ways that you've found to be successful? Are you just having meetings with them? Is it that simple?
So I think one of the key things for me is going in with a mindset that I don't know everything. Right. And so it's out of the sense of humility and out of the sense of really wanting to understand and listen that I approach someone new. And I think part of it is that recognizing, well, first of all, working at Adobe, I work with really, really talented designers, right? Like I wouldn't even say almost, every single person who I've interacted with has been a rock star designer or a manager or someone, who I have loved working with. But, going into a new relationship, there is that sense of like, well, how do I come across? Like, am I a know-it-all product manager? Because when it comes down to it, I don't know it all, right? And and definitely since you read my article, like having been in this role for a year and a half at this point, I know very little, and I recognize that I know very little. So, going into these relationships, having that sense, that self-deprecating humor or recognizing when something is going really well and observing it. Like these are tools that I use to be able to build relationship. And, it's not to be like, oh, so I can get things done, but also because genuinely I love where I work and I love the people I work with.
What I'm hearing you say is that every problem you're facing, you kind of view as a growth opportunity.
When I was talking about the whole concept of being partnered, I think entering in with the assumption that everyone has something to bring to the table, and it's not necessarily defined by what their job title is important for me to understand. I've definitely partnered with my designers on developing things like surveys or, trying to bounce ideas off of them because I recognize that they are inherently a part of my user group. However, they're not the only people in my user group, so I have to go out and do my research studies. But having those types of authentic conversations where I step in and ask them questions and ask their opinions and make a safe space for them to be able to state their opinions so that, when Andy was talking about that kind of dance that was happening, I'm hoping that I create an environment where that dance where that dance doesn't happen because they feel comfortable enough approaching me with a problem and knowing that I'm not going to overreact, knowing that I'm not going to like blow up at them because they're telling me bad news or something. Right. But that it's something that it's like, oh, actually that is a real concern. Thank you for bringing that up. Let's talk about that.
And I love how you put that, Elaine, in having authentic conversations. Right. What are some tactics that you've found that work for you, Andy, in the space that you're in? Because you're also relatively new in your position as well. So you're meeting a lot of new people, right?
I'm meeting new people every day still. So I've been in my role about 4 months now. I think I was here like a month the last time I was on the show. But when I walked in, I literally started the day after a reorg and the whole company was very like shaken up by it. So I had to I treated it like a design problem almost, right? So I had to assess the surroundings and understand how to react and act in certain situations. So the first thing you want to do is like, how do I just prove that I'm valuable to this organization? And how do I set things in motion, especially if I have to direct these people? And I realized that wasn't the right time. Everybody was still kind of shaken up and understanding where they landed and what their roles were. So for me, the first thing was to just go in and be a person, be a human, practice empathy. Beyond that, it was spend a few minutes, months. Even for me, I spent 3 months literally observing everything that went on without reacting to everything because I didn't want to shake the tree too hard. I wanted to see where things fall, where they landed, and where we can have opportunities to improve, whether it be the process or the way the organization was laid out or how it worked. So it was just going in, being human, asking people how they were doing, understanding what their role was, what work they did, where I can help them, and genuinely like making the attempt to help them, however that could be. And leveraging my team to start jumping in and building momentum through like small wins and building that relationship and setting up meetings and attending meetings that I wasn't involved in just to hear how things were moving and what was planned for. And then you start to build that relationship and then you say, well, you know what? I think we'd be more efficient, or I think we could do this better a different way. And you've earned that trust and they're like, okay, let's figure out how to do that. And at the same time, still being inviting and getting input from people and partners, and just, it's a design problem. Then we start to slowly like test different methods and figure out what works and doesn't and move forward.
It's a tough balance because you want to go in and make an impact. This is why they put me on this team,
right,
to make an impact, right? But like what you said, like it's good to just kind of cool off a bit and observe and use those skills that you've built over time to get to this product team and use those to actually help you integrate.
Yeah, the patience for me was really hard. It's something that I've learned, I grew into that somehow. I remember waking up in the middle of the night and writing things down and building processes and just, how do we change this right now? And then luckily it cools off over time. And when you go into the office, you're not like, oh, I got to tear the walls down. It's just save it for later.
I really like what you said, Andy, about, the concept of understanding and listening before you're acting. And I think that really deep understanding and that really deep, like, listening skill is critical to being a designer and also critical to being a manager in general.
You just have to actually care. Like, if you're faking the caring part,
it's obvious. It becomes obvious. Yeah.
It becomes very obvious. Like, you could be the greatest actor ever, but you can't maintain that.
Right.
And especially when you're working on things that have, especially like you, Elaine, like you're working on something that has a lot of exposure, and you're working with an organization that has a legacy of building tools for designers for a very long time. So it's not just the tool that you have, but you also have a bit of this legacy as part of everything you're doing. So, I mean, there's a very unique challenge there in my mind.
It's really been interesting to be a part of and really exciting to be a part of. Being a part of XD now is, so I've had the privilege of working on a number of 1.0s at the company. Mm-hmm. And the investment in new products is really exciting for me to see. But also, I think an investment in new ways of doing things and the value of seeing how a shifting demographic means that we have to shift our ways of doing business. And so, I go back to user voice and the way that we listen to customers or our team's engagement on Twitter. Our senior director, so my manager's manager, is on Twitter all the time, and he talks with customers directly, and he engages with them. And I think that that's something that, 5 years ago, you probably wouldn't have seen.
Yeah.
But today it's something that people value, right? They love being able to talk to us. I love talking to people like Andy. I love talking to our customers in general. And having a time and a space to be able to do that and to enable our entire team. We have developers talking to customers, and that's exciting for all of us as well, because we think we're building a better product because we're building empathy at every level of our organization.
Yeah, and I find that to be challenging for companies these days. I mean, I think what you're talking about is great and how it should be, right? But I see large companies, legacy organizations that are not comfortable with that sort of relationship with their customers. They're afraid to open that gate. What if they say something?
Yeah, and that being said, there have been a lot of studies and a lot of movement towards towards employee advocacy. And that is something that we're seeing across the software industry right now. So it's not just Adobe that's doing it. It's definitely other companies that are getting their employees involved. Mm-hmm. And part of that is, it's for employee retention, it's for recruitment, it's for getting, the right people in. But at the same time, I don't see this as being isolated to Adobe. I think that what we're seeing is a culture shift in how people and companies interact.
The whole idea of making sure that the design team and the development team and those executives and things really actually get to talk to customers is important, because otherwise it's a lot of anecdotal information, right? It's like, well, a year ago, somebody I bumped into at a conference said this about the product, and what have we done to fix that? And it's like, that's not that's not research.
Right. And in my world, it really is a building or multiple buildings full of people that are our users. They're riders of our vehicles. They love our vehicles, and they think they know the customer perspective of every one of those things. And we're starting to break through that. If we're going to identify new customers, we have to go out and talk to them, mm-hmm. and not just go to dealer show during like a celebration and talk to dealers, because that's not true. Like the way you would observe dealers and understand their day and how you make their lives easier. Mm-hmm. Same way, it's not going to help customers find a vehicle when the people that are familiar with our products will be able to go to our site and navigate through all of our different models and pick which one they want because they know where to go. But when you get a new customer and you're like, what's the difference between 150 cc's and 200 cc's? They don't really know the difference. So mm-hmm. there's got to be a different way to approach that and design a solution for them. So I think that we're making good strides towards talking to users and how we're going to plan out to build this true like learning culture. I think we're not fully there yet.
Yeah.
And it's a great opportunity for us.
That's cool. So I want to move on to the next subject, which is about what is good design. I want to get the unique perspective of a UX or experienced professional and an experienced product manager like yourself, Elaine. When I bring up I'm just going to throw the question out there, and I just want to get your response. Like, how do you know when you've got a good design? How do you feel that wash of confidence come over you and say, aha, ship that. This is ready to go. Elaine, you want to start?
So I was thinking about this question because I think this is one of the original questions that the podcast was supposed to answer. Mm-hmm. And it was like, what is good design? And in my head, like what I came up with is good design is when it disappears for the user. And, we've been talking about XD as being something that enables design. But I think ultimately our goal is to enable people to communicate and disappear into the background, right? Allow them, we have this tagline of XD allows you